Oh no, it looks like there isn't going to be a Last of Us Part 3. I'm overcome with emotion. Look how shocked my face is. Well, look at this shocked face. How shocked is this face here? Shocking. Hi everyone, it's Az here from HeelvsBabyface. Can you believe it? But it's been nearly 5 years since the whole business went down between myself, Naughty Dog, Sony Interactive Entertainment, and a wonderful company called Muso TNT, as they all conspired and struck down my video regarding The Last of Us Part 2 leaks. In actual fact, they put a copyright strike and 2 copyright claims against the same video, all for the same thing. Weird, huh? Now, if you don't know what that means in YouTube terms, it means that those 2 copyright claims could be escalated into copyright strikes, which would have meant 3 copyright strikes and your channel would have been immediately pulled down. Sony, Naughty Dog, and Muso were literally trying to silence my channel. They were trying to threaten my channel with removal for talking about The Last of Us Part 2 leaks, which came from Naughty Dog themselves. And it wasn't just me, it was Geeks and Gamers, Ryan Kinnell, and other people as well that were getting the same treatment. Now, Neil Druckmann claimed that he didn't know what on earth was going on, and then in an interview later said that as soon as the leaks came out and these videos came out, that there was a crisis meeting about what to do with Sony. And we saw what happened. They copyright struck everybody that they could, and they threatened them with deletion. All this did was add the Streisand effect, and more people suddenly got to see what was going on, and eventually, after a few days, they released all the claims and literally went radio silent until the release of the game. But even though this happened, there was still a lot of pro-Last of Us people, because it could all just be bollocks, couldn't it? It could all just be made up. This could be a disgruntled employee or something along those lines. The first game was amazing. They wouldn't do anything this stupid in the second game. Well, it actually turned out to be true, and it turned out to be a lot worse. But in the first week that it released, sales were absolutely through the roof. It was reported that the game had sold 4 million units within its first 3 days, setting a new record for the franchise. And you have to consider that the bulk of those will most likely be from people that never even saw the leaks and absolutely loved the first game, where they suddenly were met with the realism of what this story had devolved into. When Joel is killed early on in the game, it affected some people so much that they actually decided to pull their games out live on stream and destroy them there and then. Druckmann thought that he was such a genius. I'm going to make people hate Abby at the beginning of the game, and then when you play her for 10 plus hours, you're going to love her by the end of it. However, in actual fact, this didn't work at all. There's multiple compilations on YouTube of people relishing every time they get Abby killed. With the game now out and people seeing the story for themselves, it came across as exceedingly divisive amongst gamers. And suddenly those sales, which they were very proud to announce early doors, dried up. And Naughty Dog decided not to report any other sales going forward. In actual fact, it seems to have taken multiple years for the game to hit around about 10 million units sold. But what does that mean in terms of sales? Is The Last of Us Part 2 a flop? Or is The Last of Us Part 2 a financial success? 2 years after the release of the game, Naughty Dog put out this post saying, "Thrilled to celebrate the 2nd anniversary of the worldwide release of The Last of Us Part 2 and this year's milestone of 10 million copies sold. Thank you to our studio members, Sony Interactive Entertainment, our partners, I guess Muso's one of them, and the fans for your continued support. In a leaked document, because Sony's online security is so good, it was seen that The Last of Us Part 2 had made $242 million in PlayStation Store downloads alone. So that doesn't take into consideration physical copies, but I think it's safe to assume now that the vast majority of copies are now being sold digitally as opposed to physically. In actual fact, digital sales make up 90% of all game sales. So if we were to just use this rough guesstimate to attach it to The Last of Us Part 2, then we'll add on another 24 million, taking that to $266 million made for that game. So how much did it cost to develop? We know that due to a failed to redact Sony document in the FTC X Microsoft trial, we know that the cost of The Last of Us Part 2 came at $220 million. So if we guesstimate additional sales of the game since all of this stuff came out, I think adding another 5 to 10 million would be very generous indeed, due to the fact that they'd be out at discounted prices, due to the fact that the game isn't very popular indeed. Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. It looks like The Last of Us Part 2 has probably made a profit somewhere in the region of 60 to $70 million. Now, this is speculation, of course, trying to use the data that I've got available. There could be some swing either way as regards to that. But does that make a successful game? 220 development costs, come out with a 70 million profit. That's great, isn't it? Or is it? Extrapolating as best data we can, it's guesstimated that The Last of Us has sold round about 27 to 30 million units, whereas The Last of Us Part 2 most likely now sits in the remit of around about 11 to 12 million. So let's just say a third of the sales of the first game. Now, yes, there are circumstances surrounding this. The major one, I imagine, would be that The Last of Us came out in 2013 and the sequel in 2020. So it has a 7-year advantage in sales on its successor. However, one of them is popular and one of them is not. It's alleged that it hit 10 million copies 2 years after the sequel released. That's 2022. And it's predicted now that in those 3 years since, it's only shifted another 1 to 2 million. Whereas things like The Last of Us Remaster within itself sold 18 million units. There is definitely more of an audience for the first game than there is the second game. So does that mean there was ever going to be any more Last of Us? Well, let's hear it from Cuckers himself.
I've been just thinking about, okay, is there a concept there? And for now years, I haven't been able to find that concept. But recently that's changed. I don't have a story, but I do have that concept that to me is as exciting as 1, as exciting as 2. So it does feel like there's probably one more chapter to the story.
Have you ever shoved anything in your own ass?
Of course, duh.
Now, this announcement came in February of 2024, and I have to say, it was always, to me, gonna be a risk. After all, we're now talking about a franchise which definitely has the law of diminishing returns. A lot of the sales for The Last of Us Part 2 are probably now disgruntled customers based on the story and where it actually went. So would they jump on board and purchase the third installment? I would say not. I would say that sales would be significantly down, and if the budget remained the same around about the 220 million mark, then Naughty Dog were probably on a hiding to lose money. But it's not my company, and fuck Naughty Dog. So where are we in March of 2025? You better make it! The Last of Us Part 3 comments from studio head causes meltdown. in people whose brains are already mush. Who knew? The creator of The Last of Us has warned, don't bet on The Last of Us Part 3 happening at all. And fans, or I would say remaining fans, on social media have gone into meltdown about it. A third game may not happen at all, warned Neil Druckmann, the head of Naughty Dog, in an interview with Variety. When asked specifically about a third Last of Us game, he said, quote, I guess the only thing I would say is don't bet on there being more of Last of Us. This could be it. And fans have gone into meltdown. Neil Druckmann, you better be making Last of Us 3, because this new game looks trash. Referring to Intergalactic, which I actually agree with the guy, looks like a mitigated trash. And I love Naughty Dog, but it just looks not interesting, like at all. As a huge fan of both games, the idea of no Last of Us 3 really is a disappointment. FFS PlayStation! And probably more, which have now been deleted. So what exactly happened in that year? Did that concept that Neil was talking about not have any legs? Or did they realize that there's probably not that much interest in another Last of Us game now that attention has been pushed on to Intergalactic? And to be perfectly honest with you, I would be worried if I was Naughty Dog, because the reaction to that game has been any less than Interstellar. I kill myself sometimes. The trailer for that game sits on the PlayStation YouTube account with a 106,000 upvotes to a 286,000 downvotes. Oh, sorry. I apologize. 286,001 downvotes. Meanwhile, on Naughty Dog's channel, it sits at 73,000 upvotes to 188,000 downvotes. I guess people are sick and tired of ugly characters looking like girl bosses that seem to bring nothing to the table. Who knew? Why have something like Intergalactic when you can have a Stellar Blade? Now, as we all know, Neil Druckmann is a vocal supporter of professional grifter Anita Sarkeesian, and so seeing something like this does not surprise me in the slightest. We saw his change when it came to the Uncharted series, we saw his change in the Last of Us series, and now a brand new IP that nobody seems to be interested in. Congratulations, Naughty Dog. I sense that there's going to be some very troubled waters for you in the upcoming years. So until next time, you take care. Bye for now.